Right, our next material is going to be this old looking metal. So let's try to break it down into some layers. Basically you have this very worn brass. Okay, so that's one layer, and then you have some brownish color or rusty looking metal as well. Okay, let's name that brown rusty. And finally you have this gray or silver looking metal with some nice reflections on it. And that's going to be our shiny metal. Okay. And finally we have some white looking dust, white or gray looking dust in these inner crevices or inner edges. So that's dust. So right now it looks like we can get away with some 4 layers. Right? So let's try to replicate this effect in 3D Max. Okay, so here we are. This is going to be our test object. And let's start with the basic Vray material. Okay, first material I want to make is this old looking brass. So the diffuse is pretty darkish olive green kind of color. Okay, like that. And the reflections should be similar but lighter and more yellow. Okay, a bit less saturation and a bit brighter diffuse. Alright. And for metals I'm going to use the word reflection mode, the word BRDF. Okay. 0.75, and let's see how that looks. And let's make it a bit darker. Right, and let's turn on Fresnel and set it to something like 30 for now. Okay. And I think that's pretty decent. Okay. Let's make those reflections a bit more interesting by using a mix map in the reflect slot. So basically I'm going to use this color and a darker variation of it as well in the second color slot. And let's mix them together using a bitmap. So just something patchy and random looking. For example, Dirt 19. Let's check the tiling. It's not too bad. Maybe let's reduce it a little bit to make those patches larger. Okay, looking good. Maybe let's swap the colors around. Alrighty. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to our material and set up some glossiness map to make those reflections less perfect. I like using this one. Let's see it on the model. Looks fine. And reduce this amount to 50% or so. And I think that's pretty decent. The surface is not very damaged and it's pretty smooth. So I'm just gonna go with some basic fractal noise in the bump slot. Set it to something like 10. Change to fractal. Increase the levels and bring down the strength to a pretty low value, like maybe 3. Okay, let's try 8. And that's nice. Okay, so that's our brass. Let's make a new material and create this rusty looking effect. So new material, go in, let's assign it, and start with the diffuse. So basically you have this brown and darker brown along the edges. So that means we should probably use something like a mix map or a composite map. I'm gonna go for composite. I'll set up a mix map in the first layer. And I'm gonna use bitmap to blend those two together. And I'm gonna use a couple of colors. So something that looks like rust, and maybe something a bit darker. So that's not bad. Maybe a bit too saturated. And that's closer to our reference. Okay, great. And in the composite map, I'm going to create a new layer. And here I'm going to use a simple V-Ray color for now, which is going to be a darker brown. So something like that. Right, and now we need to set up a mask that is using some V-Ray dirt. So let's try V-Ray dirt as our mask. So remember, white areas show and black areas do not, so swap those colors around. And let's preview the mask using text map preview. Okay, not bad. Maybe increase it a bit to 15. Okay, and I'm going to use a radius. For radius, let's use some patchy looking bitmap like dirt number 4. And for that dirt number 4, I'm going to invert it. I think that's going to work a bit better. Not bad. Let's see it on the model. All right. So this is our V-Ray dirt, and I want to make it a bit stronger, so I'm going to go in, copy it, and paste in the unoccluded color slot. So quick and easy. And maybe make that radius a bit larger. Paste one more time. All right, looking good. So that's the rust. I'm happy with the diffuse. Let's add some reflections. So I think this map might work fine. Okay, I like the size. Let's bring down the reflection glossiness. Enable Fresnel, set it at maybe 5 or so. I'm also going to use a bitmap in the reflection glossiness slot. Let's try and do it 14. Let's see how it looks. Reduce the tiling a bit. And reduce the glossiness bitmap amount. right? And I'm gonna copy this reflect map to my bump slot as an instance. Let's make it sharper by reducing the blur. So that's a decent looking rust. Maybe the reflections are too strong. Okay. That's better. Right, so that's another layer. And let's make the next one, which is shiny metal. Okay, that's gonna be rust. And a new material. I'll name that to shiny metal. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my diffuse to something very dark, like something like 3. Right, let's use a map for the reflections. Something nice and patchy, like dirt 10 or something like that. And enable Fresnel at, let's say, 40 for now. Let's see how that looks. Not bad. Let's add some variation to glossiness. Let's use dirt 7. That's something like 30%. Not bad at all. Okay, that's nice. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here by unlinking highlight glossiness from reflection glossiness and reducing that highlight glossiness to 0.6. I'm also going to copy and paste the map in this slot. Okay, just to give it some more blurry reflections. Right, that's pretty nice. Let's add some scratches to it in the bump slot. Let's just use one of the scratch maps like scratches 2. Show that on the model. The size looks fine. I'm just going to reduce my blur and bump strength. And I'm pretty happy with the result. Okay, one more thing, and that's the dust layer. I'm going to keep it simply gray with the roughness value of 0.8 for now. We'll see how that looks later. Right, so let's plug this in a V-Ray blend material. So here's our V-Ray blend. Let's try to figure out the correct order. And it seems that we have the brass, we have rust on top, and the shiny metal on top of that, and finally finish it off with some dust. So the brass goes, and the brass goes to our base. Rust goes to coat 1. Shiny metal goes to coat 2. And this one goes to coat 3. Okay, that's how it looks right now. I'm gonna turn off my dust for now. Okay, so the rust, it appears pretty randomly. all around the object. So I'm just going to use a bitmap here. Let's say something like, okay, dirt 18. Let's see how it looks. Right, sorry, have to assign the material first to see anything. And let's render. Not bad. Let's check the map to see how it looks. And I think we can reduce the tiling a bit to make it larger, so the rust patches are larger. And I think the color difference should be a bit stronger. So I'm gonna go to that rust layer, go to my colors, and just make it more saturated. Okay, looking pretty good. Like the effect. Let's go back to our blend and enable our shiny metal again. Right, let's look at the patterns, and again it's flaky, random, but with some preference for the edges. So let's use a composite map here. And the first layer is going to be a bitmap with some weird looking patches, like maybe dirt 13. Okay, not bad. Let's reduce the tiling a bit. Check it out. Looks all right. Now let's add another layer to that composite. Let's add some background noise. Reduce the size. And I'm gonna try some whirly type noise with fractal option enabled. Okay, this looks interesting. Let's look at it inverted. Okay, this is better. And back to our composite map. So let's try some blending modes to see perhaps we can get something more interesting out of it. Well, let's try multiply. Alright, that's nice. Now let's add more shiny metal visible to the edges. And to do that, let's try using a mix map. Okay, with some let's scratch that. Let's go back to our composite map and clear that mix map out. And let's use white color here. Okay. And as a mask, I'm gonna start with some Vray dirt and see how that looks. Invert the normals, swap those colors around, and preview the map. Okay, much too large, try again. And I think we have a problem since we have a very thin object. And this is the cylinder. I'm gonna try a different approach. I'm gonna try a tension modifier instead of Vray dirt. And for tension modifier to work correctly, it's best to have a lot of edges in your object. Since it uses a vertex color map, it needs those vertices to display those colors. Let's try tension. Let's see how it looks. Okay, let's blur it a bit. Okay. I think this might work fine. Okay, let's test it out and see how it looks. I'm gonna turn out those vertex colors, go back to my material editor, and use the Vray, vertex color map in this mask slot. Let's set it at green and see how it looks. Not bad. Let's make it a bit more patchy by running it through a mix map. Okay, use that Vray color. Okay, sorry, wrong place to place that. Okay, again, use a mix map for this vertex color map, and use those vertex colors for the mix amount. And the white areas should become a bit more interesting by using a bitmap in them. So let's try this 13. With somewhat reduced tiling. And if you preview it now, you should see, okay, a pretty interesting effect. And finally, I want to run it through an output to bring up the contrast. So let's make those darks stronger and those whites stronger as well. Okay, not bad. Back to our composite map, and finally let's reduce the opacity to maybe 80. Let's render. And we got a pretty interesting result, I think. Maybe the shiny metal is a bit too shiny. So let's lay out those children and go to that shiny metal. I'm gonna swap my reflect map for something a bit darker and dirtier. So let's try dirt number 1. And re-render. Okay. So that's not bad. I'm gonna reduce my convex exponent and convex scale values for my tension modifier and blur that thing up a bit. Okay, that looks a bit more natural. Right, and the final step is adding some dust. So what we want to do is we want to add the dust to the inner edges. Okay, just like here, and only maybe on the upwards facing surfaces. So for that mask, we're gonna use a mix map, where the first of all, we're gonna set up a mix amount as a fall off. Set that to show only the vertical surfaces. Okay. Just bring up that contrast. Alright, so the areas are right. And in that white color slot, we're going to use Vray Dirt. Okay, swap those around. So the Vray Dirt looks like this. And when mixed together with black color using the fall-off map, it looks like this. And I think that looks pretty good. And maybe to make the dirt a bit stronger, I'm just gonna copy it and paste inside of itself. Alright, and let's render out the final result. Okay, and this is our vintage metal.